A few months ago, I stood in the White House, and when confronted by the President of the United States, I told him I'd see him in court.
2 weeks ago, I signed an executive order banning men from playing in women's sports. You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that.
Donald Trump had a meeting of the governors in the White House recently this week, and they were both Republican and Democrat, and he went through a list of initiatives and executive orders that he's issued in his first nearly 30 days in office and how they might apply to the particular states.
Many Democrats are fighting me on that. I hope you continue because you'll never win another race.
Trump in an epic battle of words and now in the courts with the Maine governor. It was a thing of beauty. He called her out to her face on her defiance of his executive orders around gender and boys trying to play in girls' sports.
Saying that she will follow the law in the United States of America. Just want to make that clear.
President Trump thinks he can unilaterally do something, expand executive power. Court's saying, well, no, at least not like that.
Trump administration backs down in dispute with Maine. Governor Janet Mills said, referring to Trump, well, we did see him in court and we won.
Maine's Democratic Governor, Janet Mills. Governor, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
At one point, he brought up the fact that he'd heard that the governor of Maine had resisted his executive order banning the participation of biological males in female sports. And he asked if the Maine governor was there, and she said she was.
The NCAA has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
And he said, you're going to defy a federal order? And she says, we're going to coordinate state and federal law. He says, but the executive order has the force of a federal law.
State and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports.
I've been to the White House and talked to President Trump before, President Biden, President Obama, several presidents.
Governor Janet Mills of Maine is something that caused the Civil War. Nullification of a federal law like South Carolina did in 1832.
And when he said, I am the law, basically, we are the law, my jaw dropped. And I thought, I've been district attorney general, defense attorney, and now governor. And I've always had respect for the rule of law.
But here was what was so funny. They got into a tit for tat, and she started arguing with the president and said, see you in court. And he said, yes, we will. And you're not going to be a politician very long because people are going to vote you out. It was kind of a ruckus. And
so you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding.
See you in court.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics. Every state has a responsibility to comply with Title IX. They have an obligation, a legal obligation. And we'll be enforcing aggressively, and we're going to be protecting our citizens.
And that just boggled my mind to say that I am the law. Every fifth grade civics student knows that there are three branches of government and that the chief executive is required by the Constitution to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, not to make the laws, not to invent the laws or reinterpret the laws by tweet or Instagram post or press release or executive order. He's not allowed to do that. So when he reinterpreted Title IX, I support Title IX. I have spent my career, the better part of my career, defending and protecting the rights of women and girls in healthcare, in employment.
That woman is Janet Mills. And I just want to say this. She's a far lefty on this issue, and she's not in step with the people. He's absolutely right. An executive order does have the force of federal law. And under the Supremacy Clause, federal law trumps state law when they conflict. State law reigns if there's no federal law. But if there is a federal law and then there's a competing state law and they conflict, federal law trumps state law. So Trump is absolutely right in his constitutional interpretation there. And an executive order has the full force and effect of law.
Well, I did see him in court, and we won.
Some things that she's not thinking about. That issue, according to liberal polls, is about 80 to 20 in favor of keeping female sports for biological females. The person most recently who won a pole vault contest in Maine was a biological male. And they usually have about a 20% higher rate of performance in pole vaulting because of their muscular skeletal. Women who transition to men, that is biological women, do not win male sports. And that should tell you something.
The only way of getting out of an executive order is if you can prove that the president did not have the authority to enact it in the first place. You know, that he just acting willy-nilly and there's nothing in the Constitution that gave him the power to issue such a thing.
I'm appalled. I was appalled at his interpretation that he can just reinvent the law. So when we started getting letters from the Department of Agriculture, Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services saying, you better behave or else. And the very next day, she threatened to cut off funding, all education. The very next day, because there are maybe at most two transgender athletes competing in Maine schools right now, they decided to shut off funding for our school nutrition program, the school lunch program entirely, on which 172,000 Maine school children rely for their school meals. That didn't make any sense.
The National Collegiate Athletic Association and most national school, junior college, college level sports association have fallen in line with the president's executive order. So what you're basically saying is that you in Maine, and maybe in Maine alone, are going to say that males can compete in female sports, biological males, but yet they're not going to be recognized for national records, or they're not going to be in NCAA sanctioned events. So you're not just bucking public opinion, you're bucking college sports itself. It's officialdom.
The Trump administration has agreed to restore federal funding for education programs in Maine, ending a freeze sparked by the president's opposition to the state's policies on transgender athletes.
Every state, good, I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one.
A federal judge presiding over Maine's lawsuit against the USDA ordered the Trump administration to temporarily unfreeze funds for the state's education programs. I told him I'd see him in court. She said, well, we did see him in court and we won.
And it's good to feel a victory like this. We took him to court and we won.
As the Trump administration backs down in Maine, does this signal a broader retreat on its stance against trans inclusion in education, or just a temporary tactical pause in a larger cultural war?